Welcome to TNZ Talk with radio veteran Tony Trupiano and Huffington Post blogger and writer at Liberals Unite, Richard Zombeck, where they do lean left, but always talk straight.
There's something happening here. This land is your land. If it takes them to tear the fascists down, down, down.
There is power in our union.
TNZTalk.com is information central for the show, including a place to make a donation, subscribe to the show, listen and get the archives, and to find your favorite player. Check us out now at TNZTalk.com.
And welcome, everybody, to this Friday, September 23, 2016 edition of TNZ Talk. I am Tony Trupiano, the T in TNZ. Joining me now is Richard Zombeck. Yes, you've guessed it. The Z in TNZ. And good day to you, Professor Zombeck. Professor Zombeck.
We should start saying the Z like they do in Europe.
Okay.
So we're T and Z. I'm just kidding.
Okay. I have breaking news this morning. And this is profound breaking news. McDonald's Corporation has announced that it is rolling out a test for kids' breakfast Happy Meals.
Oh, this is exciting.
And it is going to be a choice of Egg McMuffin without the Canadian bacon. They can get that with apples or yogurt, and at lunch and a hash brown. And at lunch they can get kitty fries with that as well. If it goes well, then they'll roll it out nationwide next year. Just thought I'd share that with you.
Where are they testing this poison now?
I think at Trump Tower.
because it's all that douchebag will eat.
Right, because he knows what's in it.
He knows what's in it. Right, exactly.
So, anyway, of course, that has nothing to do with anything, but I thought I'd share it with you.
Tony, don't diminish the facts here. It has everything to do with everything.
You're right. It really does. So obviously the big news going into the weekend is Monday. The first debate, the first of three debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump will take place Monday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It will go for 90 minutes, which is past my bedtime, but I'll take a nap on Monday. And it is anticipated, Z, that over every platform you can imagine, social media, print media, which some will be streaming it live, and obviously all of the cable and major networks in this country. It is commercial free, and they're expecting an audience of at least 100 million.
Well, yeah, and what... 90 minutes straight through, which is, wow.
You know, you got to wonder with Trump's ADD if he'll be able to do that. And I don't know if we talked about this the other day or not, but Clinton is preparing for 4 different Trumps. And actually, that's the rumor. Interestingly, what has not leaked and is not leaking, and the media is in a frenzy over this, is who has been playing Donald Trump. I mean, there have been suggestions that Mark Cuban was one of them. He's been tight-lipped about it. The campaign isn't leaking anything.
Yeah, I don't buy the Mark Cuban theory, because Mark Cuban has been very vocal in telling Hillary how to beat him, you know?
Absolutely. And apparently he got a front row seat. He tweeted that out yesterday.
Yeah, which is basically just insult his intelligence.
You got to wonder.
Question his intelligence.
Well, you've got to wonder if he did that as an anti-Trump strategy, so he could sit in the front row and make faces or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what I was thinking. Do you remember the debate between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan?
I do.
I think the way Biden reacted, just maybe a little less sarcasm and snark. But if Hillary did that to Donald Trump, I think he'd blow his stack. Because Biden during that debate was basically just looking at him like, you're an idiot, dude. You have no idea what you're talking about. And he was laughing at him. And I know, the thing is I would talk to people, friends of mine from, and I hate to say this, but I would talk to people from other parts of the country. I'm from Boston or Massachusetts, and I would talk to other people, and they would go, "Man, he was really rude. He was condescending. He was pompous." And I said, "No, that's just kind of the reaction you have when you hear someone spewing garbage." I mean, I think you and I talked about this on either your show or whether or not we had our show at the time. I think I was a guest once a week on your show, and we had this conversation where I was kind of defending Biden. And it's like, how else can you react when you just hear BS being spouted at 200 miles a second out of someone's mouth? You can't do anything else but just shake your head and laugh and go, "Wow, this," because you're kind of flabbergasted at that point.
Yeah, but let's talk for a minute about what you just said, because I think that there is a key piece of information there that other people around the country saw him as being condescending or rude. Then doesn't Hillary run the risk of that same thing happening?
Yeah, well, I was thinking that as it was coming out of my mouth, and I was kind of hoping you weren't going to say that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You should have kicked me under the table. Shh, be quiet. Don't say that. Shh. Well, I think that it's important that she does get him to blow his stack at some point. And there are a couple ways for that to happen. And you and I briefly discussed this as we were talking about show prep this morning. And one of them is going to be fact-checking. Now, we'll play some audio in just a second on Donald Trump's theory on moderators fact-checking. In fact, why don't we go ahead and play that, because it fits nicely into where I'd like to take this conversation.
Mr. Trump, coming up on Monday night on all the channels will be the first presidential debate. I know in the media they've been talking about whether or not the moderator, in this case Lester Holt, should he be a moderator and just ask questions? Or should he be a fact checker where he asks a question and then if somebody says something that he thinks is wrong, then he's going to interrupt and try to correct the record? What would you like to see, a moderator or a fact checker?
Well, I think he has to be a moderator. I mean, you're debating somebody, and if she makes a mistake or if I make a mistake, we'll take each other on. But I certainly don't think you want Candy Crowley again.
She was wrong.
Well, and she turned out to be wrong. I really don't think you want that. That was a very pivotal moment in that debate, and it really threw the debate off, and it was unfair. So I don't think you want that. No, I think you have to have somebody that's just lets him argue it out. And, I think there's a lot of pressure on Lester. I think Lester's a very good person, a very good man. I think that there's a lot of pressure on him because of Matt Lauer. When I had the town hall, I guess you'd call it, or the forum last week with Hillary, it was, I did well, and I had tough questions. But the polls all had hers taking a drubbing in that one. Now, I will say they went after Matt Lauer. I've never seen anything like it, and I think my questions were harder than her questions, if you want to know the truth. And a lot of pressure is being put on Lester Holt, and it's a Bobby Knight type pressure with the refs. Okay, Bobby Knight would go after the refs, and that's what they're doing with Lester Holt, which is, I think, very, very unfair. And a lot of people are watching to see whether or not he succumbs to that pressure.
Yeah.
There are two presidential debates. It's Chris Wallace and Lester Holt, right? Those are the last two.
Three in all.
The third one is the vice presidential.
Four.
Oh.
So we have three debates. We have three debates. Chris is doing the last debate.
Right. Who's doing the one in the middle?
Anderson Cooper, and you have Martha Raddatz.
There you go. All right, so we got plenty coming up. Mr. Trump's going to stick around through this commercial break. And
yada, yada. You know, I love it when he says to tell the truth. If you want me to tell the truth, well, yeah, I would love for you to tell the truth.
For once.
Yeah.
Let's try something. Let's try a novel approach on this. And let's see if... go ahead, Donnie. And maybe tell... Now, here's the... where was Candy Crowley wrong?
I don't know.
Neither do I. She pointed out a fact. She pointed out that Romney wasn't in possession of the facts, and she wasn't wrong. And Tony, this is just another example of, I mean, look at, this is Fox News. And they go, oh, and she was wrong. And they leave it at that, right? And this is why we need a moderator who's going to fact check, you know? I mean, the thing is that really, if they leave it up to, like Chris Wallace wants in the final debate, if they leave it up to the individuals, Trump and Clinton, to fact check each other, they're going to say that Clinton was lying. And then when Trump this is good. Pulling apart the debates is going to be a Sisyphean task for any newscaster, pundit, commentator, or anything if this isn't done by an impartial, which Trump will argue about. These debates are basically, now that I think about it, screwed from the get-go.
We'll come back to that comment. Let me tell you one of the problems with the candidates fact-checking each other. They won't get anything else in. There's a format. It's, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30-second rebuttal. No way to stay in those time constraints if you're fact-checking Donald Trump. Not to say that Hillary Clinton won't have areas where she needs to be fact-checked, and there are going to be issues that are going to come up. Her email issue would be one of them. If I were her, I would remind the audience that it was 2 short years ago that Donald Trump was hailing the brilliance of Hillary Clinton and telling everybody that would listen she would make a great president. And somewhere along the way, she became Crooked Hillary, and he vilifies her at every stop. So, if I'm Hillary Clinton, I'm sitting in a chair or standing on at a podium saying, Mr. Trump, with all due respect, which one are you? Are you somebody that supports me, as you did 2 years ago, or somebody that vilifies me, as you are now? And then, of course, that begs the question, exactly what or who are you?
Which there is really no answer. I mean, the thing is basically what we're looking at here. It's on Monday. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on Monday. Don't do that.
No. The debates, the 26th, right?
Yeah, it's on Monday.
Yeah. Sorry, what? I mean, I'm a little out of it. Now you made me lose my train of thought.
Yes, it is my fault.
What? What I was saying was he's basically being given the ability to just spout off whatever comes into his mind, and we're all supposed to be okay with that.
Well, clearly, a great deal of the electorate is okay with that, which is, of course, continues to confound anybody that has ever been even close to politics in any fashion at all, whether it's pundits, whether it's strategists. Nobody seems to understand this phenomenon. And, Donald Trump has gone out of his way to offend and continues to do that with even his remarks yesterday or the day before supporting stop and frisk policies, which are unconstitutional. He wants to expand a program that has already been deemed unconstitutional. He continues to tell African American people that they are worse off than they've ever been in history. And as someone said, and we may have played this audio the other day, apparently he doesn't know about slavery and Jim Crow. But beyond that, he said that Chicago has already experienced 3,000 murders this year, and he's 500 too many on that. And then he said that many of our inner cities aren't nearly as safe as Afghanistan. Now, listen, how the hell do you get away with that?
Well, you do.
But how? And then, the Fraternal Order of Police gives Donald Trump a political blowjob by endorsing him. And then he turns around and stabs them in the back 2 days later by questioning police tactics. And they blew up over that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they blew up. So he says whatever he thinks he needs to say to satisfy a constituency that, again, he keeps telling us that you're going to be shocked at the Hispanic and African American turnout for me. Now, there's some polling that suggests that not necessarily African Americans, but more Hispanics will support him than originally thought. Now, how any Hispanic can vote for Donald Trump is beyond me, unless they want a wall too.
Well, maybe they do to keep him out.
Now, I'm being serious. Why is he getting any Hispanic support?
I don't know, Tony. I don't know why he has why he has African American surrogates. I mean, that's another question I have. Aside from that, they're insane.
Yes, but they've proven to be less than reliable, and I'm just saying less than intelligent, less than up to speed on issues. They can only spew their talking points. They can't articulate a clear message like all other Trump surrogates, including Kellyanne Conway. And yet it's not. Are you calling her a liar? I am calling her a liar.
That was, of course, a reference to an interview she had.
Well, she did an interview on CNN, and it was a long interview. It was with Aaron Burnett, and Kellyanne Conway turned every question into an anti-Hillary response. She didn't directly address a single question that Aaron Burnett put to her. Not one. And she just doesn't understand. Again, I'll admit she's very smart and pretty savvy. But Aaron Burnett, again, going back to our conversation about women being tough on Trump surrogates, Aaron Burnett should get some bonus points for that, because she just kept on saying, but Kellyanne, you didn't answer my question. But my question, Kellyanne, was this. And it still didn't get answered. Which doesn't surprise you and I, but it is disturbing. Now, I'm going to give you another example of something that happened the other day. Kellyanne Conway on Sunday was on one of the Sunday morning programs where every question she was asked, it was about either his Trump's charitable donations or, taking that money and using it for legal fees, whatever. She kept on saying you'll have to ask him, or the lawyers are looking into this and I don't have those answers yet, blah, blah, blah. Well, Robbie Mook, who is Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, on Monday was on MSNBC, and they were asking him about policy, and every one of his responses was, well, you would have to ask the secretary. I'm not here to make policy. And he just wasn't answering questions. And so,
right.
That door swings both ways. It does. But Hillary Clinton, although in a very limited capacity, is the only one that talks policy.
Yeah, and this goes back to, and if you don't mind, I'd like to play that clip of, it's about 35 seconds long, of Joy Reid that I saved, and it has to do with this idea of arguments and syllogisms. Right, and just for anyone who doesn't feel like Googling or looking this up, a syllogism is basically a kind of logical argument that applies deductive reasoning to arrive at a conclusion based on two or more propositions that are asserted or basically assumed to be true. Right.
Well, gee, that cleared it up.
Well, let me play that clip real quick and
Google it, folks. Google it.
Syllogism, Syllogism, and let me play Joy Reid with a Trump surrogate, Boris Epstein, whom Tony and I have argued whether or not he's Russian. He is from Russian descent, but he's an American citizen. But here's Joy Reid. Basically going after him on arguments that many of us and many people listening have most likely had with people, and exactly what Tony and I are talking about, that when you ask a specific question and you say, well, Trump does this and that, and they respond with, well, Hillary has done this and this and this. And I remember having arguments with my dad, who is unfortunately a Republican, despite his brilliance and intelligence. And I would say, well, Romney said this about the 47%. And my father would say, well, Barack Obama is a socialist who's trying to, have a crappy healthcare program. And they're completely disjointed. And I would look at him and go, let's talk about Romney, defend him, and then we can move on to talking about Obama. But let me play this clip because I love it, and two, it'll explain things a little better.
Boris, we're not going to crosstalk. Okay. One of us is going to talk at a time. And when it's AM Boris, you can talk whenever you want.
Sure,
we're going to talk one at a time on this show.
And
I'm going to propose you, before you finish your answer, I'm going to propose a kind of syllogism, okay? It's not a perfect syllogism for people who studied philosophy. But if I ask you a question about Donald Trump, and you give me an answer about Hillary Clinton, I think it's fair for the people who are watching this show to come to the conclusion that either A, you don't know the answer to my question. B, the answer to my question would not help your candidate, so you don't want to give it. Or three, you're not here to answer my questions. You're here to give talking points that help your candidate. So now I'm going to ask you the question again.
What I particularly like about that little clip, Tony, is when she said, one, you don't know the answer to the question, and his reaction, right? This is another person with a huge ego that doesn't like their intelligence or ability to do their job to be questioned. And he's a perfect Trump surrogate. And most of them are like this. You start questioning their ability to answer a simple question. And if you say things like that too, like, well, you can't even answer a simple question, you'll see them just kind of, pucker up.
Well, let me complicate things even further.
Please do.
There was a episode of The West Wing years ago that was titled Post hoc ergo propter hoc. And it's Latin for after this, therefore because of that. And it is uttered at the very beginning of that episode. And I'm going to give you an example of what that means, because it is what's called a logical fallacy. So here's an example. I can't help thinking that you are the cause of the problem. We never had any problem with the furnace until you moved into the apartment. The theory is that people create this false logic, and the Trump campaign has been pristine with that. And then for Donald Trump, it's believe me. I mean, he says that emphatically, believe me. And it sounds like a throwaway line, but like everything else in this freaking dysfunctional society, when you hear it long enough, and Donald Trump must literally probably says it every time he speaks on something, well, after a while, people go, well, we can believe him.
Well, yeah, and the irony is that they're big Trump supporters, supposedly because they're so tired of being lied to. And in the meantime, they're completely behind a candidate who is so obviously and evidently lying to them. Just blatantly lying about everything. And because he says, you can trust me, believe me, his lies are worse than almost any candidate we've had in, I think, this century. And I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Wait a minute. Not almost. Let's eliminate that word. There has never been a mainstream candidate for president of the United States of America, the most powerful leader in the entire freaking world, that has outlasted 15 other candidates who at this point we can look back and say even Ted Cruz was more qualified. Can't believe those words just came out of my mouth.
I can't either. I'm getting a divorce.
That's fine. But there is no rationale to Donald Trump. So let's go back to the debate a moment. And one of the questions that has come up repeatedly is, will they be graded on the same curve? And the conventional wisdom in the media is no, that Donald Trump will be graded on a lower curve than Hillary Clinton. She's more knowledgeable. She has policy chops. She'll be able to articulate herself. We already expect that Donald Trump won't be able to do those things. So if he looks presidential, he'll get points for that. If he keeps his cool, he'll get points for that. But going back to something you said at the beginning, and there's an argument out there that is a false argument, that debates don't affect the outcome of an election. Well, that's not true. They do. They truly do. And in my opinion, anyway. So with that said, Z, with the criteria that's out there, they, again, an argument can easily be made that we put too much weight on not the debate itself, but the analysis. And I have to agree with that. We put way too much weight on the analysis. And, I was a champion debater in high school. I was a state champion. And one of the rules of debate is you stay with the facts. And I wish that we could give every one of those 100 million viewers a simple checklist. One column Clinton, one column Trump. Did they stay on message? Did they present facts? Did they have policy ideas? Judge them that way, not the analysis you're going to get from Fox or MSNBC or CBS or who the hell ever.
Well, and the good news is in this, and I was thinking about this when you were saying it, the good news is in this is the amount of people that are going to be tuning in, right? Is we're going to have 100 million people who aren't going to be relying on the analysis from the next day. We have 100 million people who are going to be watching and seeing how these two candidates perform in reality, right? Rather than getting the talking points that most people use at the at the water fountain in the office when they're talking to their friends. I hear that a lot. It's like, people spew out something that O'Reilly said, and I look at them and I go, that's not even an original thought. You just verbatim said what you heard on TV. And did you even watch the debates? Well, no. So you're just repeating what O'Reilly or Hannity or Glenn Beck or Alex Jones said, because why? They have no ulterior motive? Is that why?
Oh, man.
They're fair and balanced?
Yeah,
maybe that's
fair
why.
And balanced. You know, they stopped using that slogan quite a long time ago, thank God, because that was very frustrating. You know, that reminds me of the days where Walmart used to be made in America. They aren't anymore, but beside the point.
I was drinking coffee when you said that. Thank you.
No problem. So, again, let's go back to the expectations game. I mean, your thoughts on grading on different curves. Is that going to happen?
I think what they have a tendency to do is like you said, you have someone who's very well experienced, and they tend to, when Trump says things, not all the time, but they say, hey, you know, for someone who's not used to politics, for someone who's not been in politics, he did very well. He did the best he could, and that I find a little disturbing.
Yeah, because when you think about it, let's apply that to a commander-in-chief, Trump. Well, he used nuclear weapons, and it didn't work out because he killed more innocent civilians than he did enemy combatants, but he did the best he could.
Exactly. He's not used to making decisions like that. We got to cut him some slack, you know? Hopefully when he you know, bombs the hell out of Germany.
One of my friends from high school sent me a private message on Facebook and said, you know, I went to your Facebook page the other day, and I noticed that all you do is post anti-Trump stuff. Do you have nothing better to do? And I wrote him back and said, no, I really don't. I really don't have anything better to do. And he said, he's the candidate of change. I mean, what's he doing that's pissing you off? And I said, you're not going to expend my energy here, but let me just suggest that maybe you take your head out of your ass and never write me again.
Well, that was a little harsh, Tony.
No, it wasn't. Z, I'm tired. I am sick and tired of people being assholes.
You're mean.
I am.
I would have said the exact same thing, and I think I have.
You know, I'm tired of people being stupid. I'm tired of people being uninformed and ill-informed and underinformed. You're going to be
very tired.
And there's no way to turn those people around. The sad reality is, I could preach until I literally pass over dead, and there are people out there that wouldn't change their mind to save their ass.
What was it that Mark Twain said? It's easier to convince someone of a lie than to convince them that they were wrong. Or no, it's easier to convince someone of a lie than to convince them that they were lied to.
Right. And you know, it's just astounding. Then you look at the support of Gary Johnson, 9%. Jill Stein 3%. Jill Stein's imploded, but Gary Johnson does an interview with NBC yesterday and was talking about the debates. Did you happen to see this?
Yeah.
I want to smoke what he's smoking.
Let's describe that, shall we? He was on, I forget her name. Anyway, he was, and he...
It was Cassie Hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And so she asks him a question about the debates, and he basically, what he's trying to say in this is that he wouldn't really have to say anything because the two of them are so unknowledgeable compared to him that he could talk with his tongue between his teeth and still win the debate. And he did that. He put his tongue between his teeth And he said, I could talk like this through the entire debate and I would still win. And the crew on Morning Joe had a field day with that, as would we probably if we had the audio. But the visual is eminently important in that particular clip.
Both Gary Johnson and Cassie Hunt. Because she looked at him like, what in the hell are you doing?
Yeah, well, did you see Mika Brzezinski? She said, was he going to lick your face? Did he almost lick your face?
By the way, Cassie Hunt.
Yeah, all of them.
Katie Tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And who's the other one? The other one is your little new girlfriend there. Hallie?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember her last name. She's a cutie, too.
Yeah.
Donald...
We're starting to sound like misogynistic pigs.
Yeah, because at some level we are. Well, it's just true. I don't know. I just... we'll of course, talk further about the debate on Monday. Yes. We'll talk further about the debate on Monday, as I'm sure that there will be a weekend full of talk fest about this, and we'll have audio to share, and you've got to know the Sunday programs are going to be full of it. By the way, MSNBC, and I'm sure other stations
they'll be full of it, all right.
But Monday, they're doing all-day coverage from Hofstra University, where, by the way, they are going to have 1,000 police officers. And they expect a crowd of protesters approaching 10,000 people. So take that for what it's worth. All right. With that said, I do want to, before we get to some other stuff, actually, while we get to some other stuff, Hillary Clinton appeared on Zach Galifianakis' show titled Between Two Ferns. And he has had some extremely famous people on that show, including President Obama. And the reason Hillary Clinton did this is she is on a millennial push. And so, to describe it as interesting wouldn't be right. Uncomfortable would be closer to right. But I thought, did you see it, Z? Did you listen to it?
I did.
It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I especially like the end. And I don't want to ruin it. So for those that, and by the way, the Funny or Die website, which is where this resides, kept crashing the last 2 days because so many people went to watch it. So Hillary scores in that regard. Whether you think she did well or not, a lot of people watched that. So let's go ahead and listen.
Where is he? Where's Zach?
God! Oh, just trying to scare her. I'm not getting the Halloween spirit of it all.
Not a good idea around the Secret Service. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Just got started. Hi, welcome to another edition of Between Two Ferns. I'm your host, Zach Galifianakis, and my guest today is Hillary Clinton. Thank you very much, Mrs. Clinton, for being here. Critics have questioned some of your decision-making recently, and by you doing this show, I hope it finally lays that to rest.
Oh, I think it absolutely proves their case, don't you?
Are you excited to be the first girl president?
Well, I mean, being president would be such an extraordinary honor and responsibility. But being the first woman elected president and what that would mean for our country, and particularly what that would mean for, not just little girls, little boys too, that's pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Not to take away from the historic significance of you perhaps becoming the first female president, but for a younger generation, you will also become their first white president, and that's pretty neat too. As secretary, how many words per minute could you type? And how does President Obama like his coffee? Like himself? Weak?
You know, Zach, those are really out-of-date questions. You need to get out more.
What happens if you become pregnant? Are we going to be stuck with Tim Kaine for 9 months? How does this work?
I could send you some pamphlets that might help you understand.
First, you supported Obama's Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, and then you were against it. I think that people deserve to know. Are you down with TPP?
I'm not down with TPP.
No, you're supposed to say, yeah, you know me. Like the hip-hop group.
Don't tell me what to say.
Fine, lose. Country goes to shit. Let's talk about Trump.
Let's.
When you see how well it works for Donald Trump, do you ever think to yourself, oh, maybe I should be more racist? When he's elected president and Kid Rock becomes Secretary of State, are you going to move to Canada or one of the Arctics?
I would stay in the United States.
And what would you try to...
Try to prevent him from destroying the United States.
So you're going to lead the Civil War?
No, I wouldn't take up arms. I think that might be a little extreme.
Oh, right, because you were saying before we were rolling that you wanted to take away everyone's guns. Very cool. Cool.
I really regret doing this.
Any regrets over losing the Scott Baio vote?
Not a one.
So it wasn't heartbreaking that...
No.
Yeah, but Chachi, I mean, who's going to be next? Max Headroom? I'd love to meet the person who makes your pantsuits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because for Halloween I wanted to go as a librarian from outer space.
I think that would be a good look on you.
Have you thought about what you're going to be wearing at the debates?
You know, there's this thing called the double standard, and so I think about, well, what should the first woman nominee of one of our two major parties wear to the debate? And I have no idea, so if you've got suggestions, I'm open to them.
Do you wonder what your opponent might be wearing? I mean, what do you...
I assume he'll wear, you know, that red power tie.
Or maybe like a white power tie.
That's even more appropriate.
When you went to Donald Trump's wedding, did he write his own vows? And did Michelle Obama write Melania's?
I really couldn't see or hear very well, so I'm not quite sure what his vows were, but I'm sure they were great and huge and wonderful.
Like his bowels. Chelsea, your daughter, and Ivanka Trump, Trump's daughter, are friends. Does Ivanka ever call Chelsea, you know, to talk about boys that might have crushes on her, like her dad?
I don't think so.
What's going to be the number one focus of your presidency?
Oh, Zach, it has to be the economy. We need more good jobs with rising incomes. We've got to make the economy work for everybody, not just those at the top.
We need to take a break. We just need to have a word from our sponsor. Okay.
Washington is broken. The truth is, too many politicians are totally controlled by special interests and lobbyists. We're going to make America great again.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
He approves the message.
Why would you play a commercial for my opponent in the middle of our interview?
He paid me in steaks.
I'd be afraid to eat them if I were you.
It's a good cut of meat. I think it's part of the ass. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Mrs. Clinton. We should stay in touch. What's the best way to reach you? Email?
You've got mail.
Oh, my God.
I'm sorry. It's probably very unprofessional radio to be laughing like that.
No, not at all. Can you imagine Hillary Clinton sitting next to you and saying what he said?
No, he's really, you talk about stones. Oh, wow.
That was crazy. I mean, that was absolutely, first of all, the first girl president. That was my first favorite. And then throughout, of course, the steaks thing, I think they come from the asshole. That's just crazy. I mean, he was just insane.
Yeah, that.
And for those that haven't seen it, it's a black set with literally 2 ferns and 2 chairs.
Yeah. I mean, he's done several of these with Barack Obama, with Michelle Obama, with Matt Damon. It's a regular series I don't even know what.
Between Two Ferns.
It's a regular series of,
Anyway, I just could not wait to share that with our audience because, frankly, it is hilarious. It really is hilarious.
And
now,
you got that clip, right? That was
Yeah.
you that got that. Yeah. I'm going to have to teach you how to add beeps.
Whatever. Whatever. This is real radio. Yeah, you're right. You are going to have to teach me how to do that. But I enjoyed that a great deal, and I don't know that she picked up a millennial vote by doing that. But by the way, for those that are wondering, when he asked her if she thought about maybe being like Donald Trump and being more racist, she just shook her head. And of course, you can't hear that, but that's what she did. She just shook her head, and they moved on from there. But it was very, very funny. Yesterday morning on Good Morning America, Brian Ross, who is a longtime correspondent with ABC News, did a story on the Trump-Russia business connection. And there's been a great deal of talk about that. Trump, of course, has not released his tax returns, which might, in effect, give us an idea of his real estate holdings and where they're at, etc. So ABC News has done an expose. And what they found is really quite surprising to me, the depth of it. And I'll let it speak for itself, and we can talk about this on the other side of Playing It, Z. But I really want people to pay attention to what this report said on a very legitimate mainstream media source, ABC News. And if you want to argue with me on that, present some facts, but I think we can trust Brian Ross. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, we're talking about this connections, right? Exposed?
Absolutely.
Right on. Shall we play it?
Let's do it.
All right.
Investigation into Donald Trump's international business deals. Here with our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross. And Brian, you've been digging into Trump's ties with the Russians, both here and abroad.
That's right, George, and good morning. Despite what Donald Trump has claimed to you and to others, an ABC News investigation has found his real estate fortunes have benefited greatly from Russian investors and their millions, potentially putting a get-tough U.S. policy with Russia in direct conflict with his bottom line. With his beauty pageants and his buildings, Donald Trump has been promoting himself to Russians for years, traveling to Moscow and other former Soviet states with his children. His daughter Ivanka posted these pictures on social media as she pushed the Trump brand in Azerbaijan.
I'm here in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Yet as a candidate, Trump has sought to minimize any business connections to Russia, as in this interview with George.
Will I sell condos to Russians on occasion? Probably. But I have no relationship to Russia.
But the head of a Russian-American Chamber of Commerce, Sergei Milyan, who says he worked on Trump-licensed projects, told ABC News there were extensive connections.
The level of business amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars that he received as a result of interaction with Russian businessmen.
Hundreds of millions of dollars from Russian businessmen.
Correct.
Trump made millions selling Moscow rights for the Miss Universe pageant to a Russian oligarch close to Vladimir Putin, with a man the FBI considers a top Russian mafia figure invited into the VIP section. The developer of a Trump-licensed hotel project in Toronto is a Russian-born billionaire. And Russian-language promotional videos attracted hundreds of wealthy Russians to buy condos in Trump-licensed projects in Florida until U.S. sanctions cut off the flow. Now Trump says he's open to lifting those sanctions.
We'll be looking at that, yeah. We'll be looking. Go ahead.
So he likes Russia because there's money made there.
He likes Russia because he likes beautiful Russian ladies, and he likes talking to them, of course, and he likes to be able to make a lot of money with Russians. Yes, correct.
Trump says there will be no conflict in dealing with Russia if he is elected, because his children will run his business in a blind trust.
He's still going to know what the businesses are, where they are.
We will not discuss this. We're not going to discuss those things. It doesn't matter. Trust me.
But a leading Republican ethics lawyer says that does not solve the problem.
Well, I don't see how you have a blind trust when you know what's in the blind trust. The appearance is that a foreign government or other foreign organization has influence over the President of the United States.
Trump's lawyer tells ABC News that all this interest in Trump's business in Russia is overblown. The campaign says the Republican candidate has not decided whether he would or would not lift U.S. sanctions, only that he's looking at it.
But Brian, the lawyer did not deny hundreds of millions of dollars in investments?
No, it's just that it's overblown, our interest in it.
Okay, Brian Ross, thanks very much.
All right, you too.
I don't know if you got the Don Jr. quote in there.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me. He said, trust me.
Yeah, well, and we're not going to talk about this. We're it's his business and stuff, but we're going to have a firewall, and it's not going to come up, and he's not going to be involved in the business while he's president of the United States. Now,
trust me.
Yeah. Now, what always bothers me about these things, like this story, and that evidently shows his connections and what we should be worried about, and how top officials in our government are concerned with foreign governments swaying policy here in this country, is you and I and anybody listening will say, well, yeah, and that's a perfect reason to make sure that he doesn't. It disqualifies him. He shouldn't even be in the running anymore. And someone needs to step in and put a stop to that, which is true. The problem with it is that can always be seen as, from his side and from his supporters, as them trying to stop the best president ever.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that beyond ABC, nobody picked this up. Nobody's reporting it, number one. We'll go back to the other day when we find out that his charitable trust had spent $258,000 illegally. It was a big story. It got well covered, and it'll be referred, and lawyers will get involved. But the campaign said it was full of inaccuracies. And when they were pressed for what those inaccuracies were, they couldn't produce them. And the only thing that Kellyanne Conway could come up with is that in one of the sentences, it said may. This may be true, or this whatever. And so she hung her hat on that, and Aaron Burnett, who was interviewing her for that particular interview, had to go with it, right? She had to, because it did say may. Simple three-letter word that allowed the Trump campaign to once again deny and deflect. And it's getting old. I'd like you to talk a little bit about Senator Elizabeth Warren, a recent committee meeting, and Wells Fargo Bank.
So, as many people might know, or possibly not, Wells Fargo was involved in what can only be called a scam, where they offered bonuses to their employees, and over 5,000 of them. What they were supposed to do was what's called cross-selling, is existing customers have an account with you, and you call them up, get their approval, and basically talk them into getting a credit card, possibly opening another checking account, a debit card, whatever. Any of the other services that Wells Fargo offers. The problem that occurred within Wells Fargo is, one, all of these employees were offered bonuses to do this, to upsell, cross-sell, however you want to call it. What was missing was they didn't get customers' permissions, and they basically opened more than 2 million accounts with Wells Fargo under other people's names, under customer names, and people found that they had an extra 4, 5, 6, sometimes 8 additional accounts to what they had. The employees were, of course, given bonuses for their great cross-selling abilities. And the CEO of Wells Fargo, one Mr. Stumpf, was called before Congress and taken to the woodshed by Elizabeth Warren. And the first clip I want to play is basically her intro into all of this. In the meantime, over 5,000 employees have been fired. None of the executives at Wells Fargo have been fired. And Stumpf's commentary was that this was the fault of low-level employees and that he shouldn't be held responsible. The same Mr. Stumpf, who said 4 or 5 years ago that the buck stops with him and he is ultimately responsible for what happens in his bank. Apparently, when things go wrong, he is no longer responsible for what goes in his bank. And as some of you listeners may know, I know Tony certainly does, I have a special place in my heart for Senator Elizabeth Warren, not only because she is the senator of my state, but or that I've met her and talked to her and have spoken with her husband, who is a wonderful, charming guy, but also her work during the foreclosure, mortgage, and financial crisis in this country. And what happened at Wells Fargo is further proof of how badly we need her pet project, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which the GOP continues to try to defund and crush, an organization that is sorely needed in this country in order to protect consumers. I could go on for hours. Tony probably wants me to shut up. I am going to play this first clip of Elizabeth Warren lambasting Mr. Stumpf, the CEO of Wells Fargo.
These are calls where you personally made your pitch to investors and analysts about why Wells Fargo is a great investment. And in all 12 of these calls, you personally cited Wells Fargo's success at cross-selling retail accounts as one of the main reasons to buy more stock in the company. Let me read you a few quotes that you had. April 2012, quote, "We grew our retail banking cross-sell ratio to a record 5.98 products per household." A year later, April 2013, quote, "We achieved record retail banking cross-sell of 6.1 products per household." April 2014, quote, "We achieved record retail banking cross-sell of 6.17 products per household." The ratio kept going up and up, and it didn't matter whether customers used those accounts or not. And guess what? Wall Street loved it. Here is just a sample of the reports from top analysts in those years, all recommending that people buy Wells Fargo stock, in part because of the strong cross-sell numbers. And I'd like to submit them for the record.
Without objections.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when investors saw good cross-sell numbers, they did while this scam was going on. That was very good for you personally, wasn't it, Mr. Stumpf? Do you know how much money, how much value your stock holdings in Wells Fargo gained while this scam was underway?
Well, first of all, it was not a scam. And cross-sell is a way of deepening relationships. When customers
We've been through this, Mr. Stumpf. I asked you a very simple question. Do you know how much the value of your stock went up while this scam was going on?
It's all of my compensation is in our public
filing. Do you know how much it was?
It's all in the public filing.
Oh, you're right. It is all in the public records because I looked it up. While this scam was going on, you personally held an average of 6.75 million shares of Wells stock. The share price during this time period went up by about $30, which comes out to more than $200 million in gains, all for you personally, and thanks in part to those cross-sell numbers that you talked about on every one of those calls.
So you get the idea?
I do.
Yeah, there's not really a lot to say. Should we play her final reaction to all of this?
Yeah, then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
You know, here's what really gets me about this, Mr. Stump. If one of your tellers took a handful of $20 bills out of the cash drawer, they'd probably be looking at criminal charges for theft. They could end up in prison. But you squeezed your employees to the breaking point so they would cheat customers and you could drive up the value of your stock and put hundreds of millions of dollars in your own pocket. And when it all blew up, you kept your job, you kept your multi-million-dollar bonuses, and you went on television to blame thousands of $12 an hour employees who were just trying to meet cross-sell quotas that made you rich. This is about accountability. You should resign. You should give back the money that you took while this scam was going on, and you should be criminally investigated by both the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission. You know, this just isn't right. A cashier who steals a handful of 20s is held accountable, but Wall Street executives who almost never hold themselves accountable, not now and not in 2008 when they crushed the worldwide economy. The only way that Wall Street will change is if executives face jail time when they preside over massive frauds. We need tough new laws to hold corporate executives personally accountable, and we need tough prosecutors who have the courage to go after people at the top. Until then, it will be business as usual. And at giant banks like Wells Fargo, that seems to mean cheating as many customers, investors, and employees as they possibly can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Vitter.
Yeah.
As I posted on social media, this is one woman you do not want to piss off.
No, I know. She's tremendous. She's tremendous, and she is one of the few who has our best interest at heart.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, it's that time in the show where we need to do the 411. So if you would be so kind as to do those honors.
And the 411 on TNZ Talk is go to tnztalk.com, find out how to support us, friend us, follow us, tweet us. What else? Our archives, our bios, ways to contact us. Please go to the support page. We need your funding, probably more than ever. And we are listener-supported radio, or at least trying to be. Go to tnztalk.com, click on support, and find out what you can do to help out.
Absolutely. And with that said, that'll do it for us for this week. Both Richard Zombeck and I will be back on Monday as we continue to debate the debate. Actually, Z, really looking forward to Tuesday's show. Can't even imagine how that's going to go. And that's a good thing. And that's a very good thing. In the meantime, our audience is growing, and we do appreciate that. But we do need your financial support in order to continue to do what we do. We would like to eat, pay our cable bill, be able to continue to do what we're doing. So go to tnztalk.com and help us out. With that said, our thanks to everybody for listening today. For Richard Zombeck, I am Tony Trupiano, and as always, we ask that you be well.